Did you know there was a Japanese soldier who refused to surrender after World War II? Hiroo Onoda was a Japanese Army lieutenant who in 1945 was ordered to stay behind on the island of Lubang in the Philippines and wage guerrilla war against the Americans, and he did. For 29 years, Hiroo Onoda waged war against the Americans, killing 11 people and being shot at least 21 times. But how did this soldier's story come to an end? Let's find out in today's episode. It was 1945, and Hiroo Onoda was a Japanese soldier fighting for the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II. He was just a low-ranking officer. But that didn't matter. The war was going badly for the Japanese, and soon the fate of the entire Japanese army hung in the balance. In an attempt to prolong the war and cause as much damage to the Allies as possible, Japan's top military brass devised a plan to deploy 100 special guerrilla units across the Pacific. These soldiers were given orders to stay behind enemy lines and carry out hit-and-run missions on Allied forces. One of these soldiers was Hiroo Onoda. He was sent to the island of Lubang in the Philippines with orders to lead a guerrilla army of 300 men. His mission was to stop the American forces from advancing further into the island. Onoda and his men hid in the mountains and fought a series of small battles against the Americans. Although they were outnumbered, they managed to hold off the Americans for several months. However, by 1946, most of his men had either been killed or captured, and so Onoda went into hiding, becoming a one-man army. Onoda lived in the mountains of the island and hunted wild pigs for food. He would then sell the meat to local villagers for money. With this money, he bought weapons and ammunition to continue his fight. He remained hidden in the mountains until 1974, when he was finally discovered by an American soldier. By this time, Onoda was 62 years old. He had spent almost 30 years in the mountains of Lubang Island. When he was finally found, he was brought out of the jungle and shown a newspaper that announced the end of World War II. Even then, Onoda refused to surrender. He said that he would only surrender to his commanding officer. And since no one knew where his commanding officer was, Onoda remained a prisoner in a Philippine jail. For the next 2 years, the Philippine government tried to convince Onoda to surrender. They offered him a presidential pardon and citizenship in the Philippines, but he refused to accept these offers. He also refused to speak to anyone other than his fellow Japanese soldiers. It seemed as if Onoda would spend the rest of his life in prison until something miraculous happened. In 1976, Nobuyoshi Noguchi, Onoda's former commanding officer, flew in from Japan to relieve Onoda of his duty. This was the only thing that could end Onoda's mission. And so in the presence of his former commanding officer, Onoda finally surrendered. He laid down his arms and walked out of the jungle as a defeated soldier. After giving up his weapon, Onoda was immediately arrested by the Philippine constabulary. He was charged with 11 counts of murder and several counts of illegal possession of firearms. Surprisingly, though, Onoda was able to get off with just a suspended sentence. He was released without having to serve any jail time. After his release, Onoda returned to Japan, where he was reunited with his family. He spent his remaining days writing about his experiences in the war and meeting with other veterans. In 2002, Onoda passed away due to liver cancer at the age of 82. It's unclear what motivated Onoda to stay in the mountains of Lubang Island for almost 30 years. Some say that he was simply following orders, while others argue that he was crazy. Nevertheless, his story is a remarkable one and deserves to be remembered. Hiroo Onoda was a soldier who refused to surrender even after World War II had ended. He believed that he had a duty to his country and to his emperor to continue fighting. And so he did, until his former commanding officer flew in to relieve him of duty. Only then did Onoda believe that the war was truly over and he finally laid down his arms. What do you think of Onoda's story? Was he a hero or a madman? Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.